Hey, it's me, MLB. This is chapter 22 of Pinpoint. This one's titled Happily Ever After. Shoto continued to visit every day, sometimes bringing you a small gift. He was very sweet and caring, and before long you found yourself head over heels for him. One afternoon he invited you to go to the local markets with him. He never actually said it was a date, so you didn't think much of it. You were just elated to be able to spend more time with him. As the evening came to a close, he was walking you back home. You'd had a wonderful evening with him, and you found yourself admiring him from the corner of your eye as much as he was admiring you from the corner of his. Yin, he finally said, breaking the silence. I've been meaning to ask you this for a long time. What is it, Shoto? You asked, wondering what it was that he'd been holding back from you. He stopped and turned to face you, taking your hand gently in his. Yin, I've been very fond of you from the moment I met you. You are beautiful, and I can't stop thinking about you. Would you consider dating me? Your heart nearly stopped as he looked into your eyes earnestly. His sincerity was overwhelming, and you found yourself lost for words. He took your silence as a negative response to his honest statement, and reluctantly let your hand go and looked away. I apologize, Yin. Maybe I was too forward, he said dejectedly. Oh, no, I'm so sorry. I was just shocked by what you said just now, Shoto. I'd love to date you, you said. His head whipped around, and his eyes met yours. Really? He said eagerly. Yes, really, you giggled. He pulled you in for a hug and kissed you softly on the neck. Your knees went weak and he almost had to carry you the last bit back home to your house. He said goodbye to you on the steps and watched you enter before turning and heading back to town. So, how did your afternoon go? Your grandma asked, wiggling her eyebrows cheekily. He asked if he could date me, you squealed with excitement. Your grandma was overjoyed. 1 year later, after dating Shoto for that length of time, you stepped out from the room in your wedding dress. How do I look, Grandma? Your grandma teared up and clasped her hands to her mouth. Yin, my darling, you look simply stunning. Thanks, Grandma, you beamed. It was your wedding day. Shoto had asked you to marry him only 6 months after you started dating, and you were thrilled. He was handsome, sweet, and everything you'd ever wanted in a man. You couldn't wait to be Mrs. Todoroki. Out in the garden, Shoto was talking with guests. Shoto! A familiar feminine voice called to him. He turned around. Momo, he called happily, hugging her gently as she approached. How have you been? You look well. Yes, thank you, I'm doing very well, she said, smiling. Please, let me introduce you to my boyfriend. She turned and gestured to a man behind her. Hello, sir, it's a pleasure to meet you, Shoto said pleasantly, extending his hand to the gentleman. My name is Shoto Todoroki. Rogers, the man responded with a similar stoic expression to Shoto's. Steve Rogers. An American, Shoto said, one eyebrow raised. What brings you to Japan? Well, apart from my lovely girlfriend here, Steve said, pulling Momo in for a side hug, I'm here on a mission. Mr. Rogers is part of a hero team, Momo added. Have you heard of the Avengers Initiative, Shoto? Steve asked. No, can't say I have, Steve, Shoto said. I'd love to chat more with you after the ceremony, though. I feel we may have a lot in common. Sounds fine by me, Steve said with a smile. Later on through the ceremony, Shoto raised your hand and held the ring to the tip of your finger. I do solemnly swear to protect you and care for you for as long as we both shall live, he said in a commanding voice, sliding the wedding ring onto your finger. And I, Yin, promise to stand by you always, through thick and thin, till death do us part, you said, taking Shoto's hand and raising the ring to his finger, sliding it on effortlessly. The minister then stepped forward and held both of your hands together, raising them in unison. I now pronounce you husband and wife, he announced proudly, causing a cheer to erupt from the sea of guests. You grinned at Shoto and he smiled softly back at you. You may now kiss the bride, the minister said. Shoto leaned in and pulled you into him by your waist, his lips locking with yours. You melted into him and wrapped your arms up around his neck. The crowd cheered as you parted, and your cheeks dusted with a light blush. Shoto took your hand and with a small smile led you down the steps and off down the aisle, while people threw flowers and confetti. You were giddy with excitement. This day had finally come. As Shoto hoisted you up for another kiss, the sunlight caught your rings, causing a brilliant flash of orange. What rings are they? Steve asked, leaning in to whisper to Momo's ear. Hessonite, she said. It's a very long story. She smiled at him. I'll tell you later. The end. And there ends Pinpoint. I know that was a relatively shorter book of mine. I've got a few long, few short, but I hope that it was still just as enjoyable as some of the longer books. Stay tuned for the next book, which will be posted later this evening.